And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start, unless Roxanne gives me an evil glare, at this end, and then we're going to go across, and we're going to give everyone the chance to kind of spend about 5, 6, 7, 8 minutes introducing themselves to you, telling you a little bit about their experience. And then once everyone's had the chance to do that, we're going to open it out to some questions from the room and get some discussion going. So I am going to start with Adam at this end of the stage. Adam, introduce yourself and the floor is yours. Thank you. Let's give everyone a round of applause for doing this, eh? All yours.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ollie. So my name is Adam McNabb. I'm Director of Protective Services, Fire Chief for the town of Fort Smith, and I was in that role during the 2023 wildfire season. I briefly left that role to join my friend Craig Halifax at the Office of the Fire Marshal for 6 months, and now I'm back in this role again. So I guess I'll keep this in 8 minutes. I've been told very specifically to, and I'll talk about the 2023 wildfire event and some of our experiences, a couple of the challenges that we faced, and just some of the work we've been doing since with the lessons learned. So 2023, I think we all know, was a big year. It started early, so our first small wildland event was April 22nd in community, started a backyard fire. By May 5th, we were experiencing a larger landscape level fire out in Bell Rock to the west of us. Fortunately, wind was in our favor, but that was a fire event that did get up and get moving, and that was before ECC was brought on strength. So that was a challenge getting crews to a fire at that time. So that was May 5th. Then by May 14th, of course, there's the KFN fire. And so from May 14th on, we started really focusing on improving our emergency management plan, prioritizing public education, PSAs around preparedness, making sure that folks were thinking about getting ready for a possible evacuation just generally, because we did have the sense that it was going to be a significant wildfire year. So through June, we were working hard on updating our plan, updated our emergency management bylaw, pushed a lot of PSAs and new content out to the public, and that was really fortunate that we did do that work, because we then, of course, moved on to an evacuation notice, June 29th. That evacuation notice initially was actually for a different fire. It was a fire to the north side of the river, Fire 22. We were concerned about it. It had met some trigger points coming to the south. We did have the river in our favor, but we were still concerned about that. We were keeping an eye on the Wood Buffalo fire, which ended up being the fire of note and concern. And so we started experiencing highway impacts, highway closures from that Wood Buffalo fire as it moved to the north and west of town. And then we saw that big wind event coming, the wind event that affected most of the territory. And we called for an evacuation alert August 11th and our eventual evacuation order August 12th. And then, yeah, the fire blew in. We got very fortunate in Fort Smith. It blew to the south of us, but it blew up fast, and certainly it put our community at risk for a prolonged period. So community was evacuated for much longer than we hoped or anticipated while we worked on, while the wildfire folks worked on a very, very long line of concern to the south and to the west of Fort Smith. During that time, some of our biggest challenges really were in interagency communication and coordination. Having said that, all of the folks with Parks Canada, Alberta Wildfire, ECC, the Indigenous groups and Métis of Fort Smith, all of those folks did a great job of coming together, but it's a lot of agencies to get to the same table and to get onto the same page. So certainly there were some struggles as Unified Command came online initially, just trying to get a clear idea of who was going to be managing the incident as it crossed borders and started to impact Fort Smith. And then working with government departments and agencies around what their plans were or how their plans changed when we were impacted by wildfire, loss of the health center, concern of NTPC staff leaving town. We were on generator because the hydro dam was down, so losing power in community was a concern. RCMP being pulled out because of decisions in Ottawa, and all of those things impact the health and safety of responders on the ground. So then trying to keep the incident safe and stable, making sure that we're providing all those support services, because again, we had to continue to produce potable water, manage sewage and garbage disposal for what's now a 500 to 600 person incident of responders. So there were a lot of challenges around that at the time. Accessing resources, of course, we weren't the only town that was experiencing wildfire impact. Most of Western Canada, parts of Eastern Canada. So just securing resources was challenging. Mental health supports during the incident and after the incident, that was a challenge to get those resources and get them to where people needed them. And then, as has been mentioned repeatedly, one of the biggest gaps was basically where the forest ends and the houses begin. We do houses, ECC does forest, but what happens in between and how are we managing that? So that was not really clear. I have to say that my volunteer group did a fantastic job of stepping up and doing what needed to be done to prepare. The folks in Alberta came up willingly and readily to support us in the wildland urban interface setting. Fortunately, we didn't have to do that kind of work like Hay River did, but those were some of the challenges. So moving forward, we did a lot of vegetation management work during the incident. We certainly did some large-scale landscape level breaks, big work. We didn't do much nuanced work because we were preparing for possible impingement of a large-scale wildfire. Since then, we've updated our community wildfire protection plan to access the money that's flowing through NWTAC. So we will be working on more nuanced mitigation, doing some work to prepare the breaks that were created in 2023 to be ongoing legacy breaks that can be maintained, mowed, things like that, and doing some more thinning, pruning, and vegetation management in town, stand conversion, looking at possibly planting more deciduous trees or allowing forests through managed prescribed burning to do stand conversion to more deciduous prominent tree types. So we're certainly working on that. Of course, everything is a work in progress, including our preparedness and our plans. Every year we're going to be updating and reviewing our plans as we're doing now too. So lots of lessons learned working with agencies, again, especially the critical services in our community to make sure that they have plans for continuity of service should this happen again, because we are an isolated community at the end of the road. If we lose our CMP, there's security concerns. If we lose the health center, there's health concerns for responders. Power, obviously we don't make water. We need drinking water, we need sewer to continue functioning, to even run an incident of the scale that we saw. So all of those things are things that we will be working to improve. They're definitely lessons learned there. I don't know how I am for time. I have 1 minute left. Yeah, and so we're very excited too. We have engaged with ECC on their great work with the Fire Smart program. So we're working towards recognition programs. We have Fire Smart assessors trained within our fire department that are going out and working with community members. I think that was another big lesson learned when we started going around and doing structure protection and doing assessments of homes in preparation for possibly dealing with a wildland urban interface fire. There's a lot of work to do that starts in folks' backyards, and it's been mentioned before. We can build every fire break in the world, but if the fire wants to spot into our community and individual properties are a risk because of the state of Fire Smart readiness, it puts the entire neighborhood and community at risk. So we're continuing to push that messaging, which has been well supported by ECC. So yeah, I'm looking forward to continuing that work as well.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Adam. We'll pass the microphone down. Candice.
I'm Candice Jameson. I'm the mayor of Hay River, and my Director of Protective Services, as well as my fire chief is sitting next to me. I guess I do have notes, but I think maybe a little history on Hay River. So I took office 6 years ago. This is my 7th year. The first year we had a dump fire that lasted a month. It was a long time. Concern over, of course, air quality, that kind of thing. The next year, following year, we had a high-rise fire that displaced 100 families. Then, of course, we went into COVID, which was a 2-year stint, and then we had a flood. And we had a flood. You can plan for the worst and hope for the best. We got worse than the worst, and so we pivoted again. Very blessed in that the people around you and the people that had been through all these things were still in place. So our local emergency management organization, top notch, people stood up and did what they needed to do. But I think the preparedness part is huge. And of course, because we have had so many things, we were prepared, right? Having that disaster policy looked at on an annual basis, like reviewing it, ensuring that the people at the table are there, and if they can't be, and sometimes people don't react like they're supposed to react in a disaster, so there's redundancy, ensuring that they have somebody that's going to back them up. And we learned that over those years that, oh, where's this guy, right? So I think that's a big one, is that understanding that we have a volunteer fire department. There's nothing that says they have to stay. So, and I imagine most of you guys are in the same place. So understanding that your redundancy does come from your people, the people that are on the ground, the people that stay. Like I said, by the time that the fire hit us, we were in a pretty good, decades of experience in preparing for emergency response. Our annual flood, we had integrated LEMO that knows their roles, especially for supporting evacuation. So well-trained and equipped local fire department with over 30 years of experience, over 30 members, and I don't know how many years of experience. Our MLA is one of them, and he was logistics on that fire, and I'm telling you, boots on the ground is huge. Established connections with other fire departments for additional aid. That was huge for us. The importance of established public communications. If I know, you know, right? That was my message to the people, that if I know, you're going to know. The channels and resources dedicated to community, to the public, is huge. And we learned that real quick. The first day when that fire came at us, we lost all communications. But communications wasn't just with our people, it was with our team, right? Like if one's over here, one's over there. And the people just kept coming, right, to help. And it was pretty amazing to see. But it also is, holy man, we got to feed these people. We need a place for them to put their heads. So yeah, planning and being prepared. And when everybody knows their role, things go off a lot smoother. And every time that something went wrong in my community, you just watched that wheel just got better and better at spinning and what it was supposed to do. So, and historically, adherence to community wildfire protection plan. Every year we're looking at that, right? We live in the forest, and it's what we do. So yeah, we used a good portion of the GNWT budget and executed the community plan to build fire guards and other wildfire protection, so much so that we only got 50,000 from WTAC. So we must have been doing a good job there. But yeah, so fire breaks aren't, I mean, they help, but they're not going to be the be all and end all, right? So understanding that like somebody was saying, well, they need to get in front of this thing. You don't fight fires, you manage fires. I think that's a big one. That's a huge lesson that I learned, was that, you don't want people in front of this thing because it's very dangerous. Number one thing as well from my end of things was public safety was number one, right? Getting everybody out as quickly as you can. That time is, well, we don't know, it doesn't matter. We need to get people out of here. Right. And in my case, the last one we had, Fort Smith was evacuated to our community as well. So I wasn't just evacuating one community, I was evacuating two, and being responsible for two communities was a big one. So yeah, lessons learned, travel, talk more about the actual preparedness, what we do with LEMO and that kind of deal. But yeah, hopefully that gives you a little bit of what happened.
Thanks, Candace. Yeah, as she said, I'm the Director of Protective Services and Fire Chief in Hay River. In 2023, we had 2 events, actually. So the first event we had was in May, and that was the one that, really devastated KFN and put our community at risk, and it was something we had never, I guess, planned for in a sense of our response. The way the world kind of worked for us is we were structural guys and we took care of evacuation, but when it came to wildfire, that was ECC's playground, and we just supported where we could. Through that event, I think we really realized that our town's structural defense comes down to us a lot of the time. So, excuse me. Yeah, so we had to pull together and get through that one. That was about 13, 14 days, and we had some hairy moments, but we were able to keep the structures up on our end, and we were able to support KFN where we could. But, it also shows the importance of working together. Then we roll into August. Again, not much notice when we got the call to evacuate, so evacuation was a bit chaotic, and I could spend a whole day talking about that evacuation, but our preparedness leading into this, like Candace said, we exercise our emergency plan every year. We thoroughly go through it. We bring everyone who's a player to the table weekly, and we do tabletop exercises. So we take our preparedness very seriously. But even going into this, you can be so prepared, and you can think of all the ways things should work, but when it actually kicks off, you're not sure how everyone's going to react. So things we thought were going to be in place weren't in place. People's staff left posts. We had to get someone to manage the airport that wasn't airport staff while we were bringing in Hercs to get people out. RCMP pulled from the community, much like Adam's situation. There was a lot. Also, the hospital closing down, it wasn't something that we thought was going to happen, which then we were setting up emergency sort of care after that point with contracted resources from AMS. But once you get into a rhythm and you actually get to start the planning process and pulling people together, I think that after that initial impact day when we were able to get into unified command and start to acquire resources. Big difference between May and August for us was the support from Alberta that we had. We actually had Wildland Urban Interface resources show up that night. High Level drove through the fire to Hay River, and they arrived that night. So the crews started coming in. We started getting organized, started getting our task forces set up. But just to run an event of that scale, we had I was in unified command with ECC. Their own resources alone were massive, and they had firefighters from all over the place. And even just under my side with the structural protection division, we were running probably 100 firefighters and 35 pieces of apparatus, up to 40 pieces of different apparatus. It was a beast to manage logistically, and just food and beds and people flying in, flying out, changing out shifts. You're planning weeks in advance. And, we gained a lot of experience through going through that event, and we had a great unified command with ECC and working together and planning together and making sure everyone had the appropriate resources for the priorities we had. And so that those lines of communications between us were really great. And we had the pleasure of working with several different ICs for ECC, and some from Ontario, and then also some from the NWT. And I think throughout the event, we had a great team once we were able to get up and running. But those first few days, definitely chaos to get organized for sure. But, that being said, we were pressured for 34 days, I think, before we were able to bring back people. So long event for our people who were fighting the fire 12 hours a day, every day, sometimes 20 hours, depending if we were under pressure. So really hard to manage that. You got to keep morale up. It's a lot to manage, but you know, our lessons learned, you know, we don't want those to go to waste either. And you know, we don't want to see another situation like this where like we were in May, where we felt very under-resourced for what we were facing alone. So, you know, I think one thing that we're hearing here, at least even with the fire departments and through the NWT Fire Chiefs Association, is that we want to be able to help each other through these events if someone gets into trouble. And, you know, the talk about bringing WUI to the Northwest Territories is something that we all want to see. And I think it's the biggest change that our fire service needs to go through so that we can work together and be more prepared as a community for both the interface response and the wildfire response. They work together. And the more we can do that, the more we can work together and cross-train and hopefully get a program in place. We'll be able to help each other in those times of need, because we certainly needed it. We wouldn't have been able to manage that fire alone in August without those resources. So that made the difference between a lot of our community standing. We had many challenging days. Anyways, you know, and even just to talk to that, the mental health impact after this, you know, I think that was something on the question list. It's hard on our community. I think, you know, going through this, everyone's on edge. A lot of anxiety from our community members. You know, siren goes off, everyone is really freaked out. So we try not to set that off and scare everyone, but you know, we still got to make sure we're prepared for our events. And you know, even just the mental toll on our members too. That was 35 days of grinding, and you know, their homes at risk and their families, and so it was very taxing mentally. But yeah, you know, we're getting through it, and we want to see something come from this, you know, especially from 2023, everyone that experienced different levels of risk and different levels of operations. You know, I'm glad to see this event. You know, this is much needed to bring us all together, to have these conversations in this room and sit down and find a path forward so that we can work together. Glad Rodney's here to break down the WUI system for us after this. And yeah, looking forward to finding a path forward.
Hi, my name is Samantha Bayan. I'm the SAO for the Hamlet of Toledo. I'm going to be talking about the wildfire prep that we have underway going in Toledo. First off, we started our fuel modification project with the DMF funding program, working with Sarah Brown. We cleared out and thinned our fire break. And now this year, we're going to be thinning out areas around the gas tank farm, the power corporation, around our water treatment plant, the essential infrastructure buildings. And we're continuing that this summer. Also, we had the Yukon Wildland firefighters, First Nation groups come up to Toledo and offer the Beat the Heat training program with locals in Toledo. That was a 10-day program where we had, I think, about 14 to 16 locals training for that program. It was a really great program from what I heard from the participants. It was interactive, hands-on learning, engaging the students. So that was really good fire prep training for Toledo and the local residents. Next off, we are doing I'm working with Mike Westwick from ECC for fire smart assessment training in Toledo, where they'll come up for 3 days to train the local fire department crew on fire smarting and doing home assessments for the community. So we are encouraging residents in the community to sign up and get get their home assessed from the fire crew that's coming up to do the training. Also, we are going to start do our community tabletop exercise on our community emergency plan. That's going to be focusing on the wildfire prep, hosting, and evacuations. And there was one more training that I can't remember. But all these trainings going to be beneficial for Toledo. We are trying to encourage more locals in the community to sign up for the fire department crew. We have capacity as one of our areas of concern. For the summer months, the fire department, the majority, I think we have about 11 volunteers on the fire department crew, and the majority of our crew are from the south. So during the summer months, our crew goes down to, I think, three or four members, 2 members for the summer season. So that's an area of concern, is our capacity issues. Also, we do want to start planning interagency coordination with the communities nearby in the Satu region, and just see where else we can get additional resources in case an event happens. Toledo, we did have an evacuation back in, I think, 1996. I can't say too much on that. I think I was just a teenager then. So, but I do remember it was very scary at that time. There was a lot of chaos happening. There was, from what I remember, a lot of people were in panic mode. We got evacuated from Toledo. Then we had to go over to Norman Wells. And then from Norman Wells, we evacuated, I think half the people from the smaller communities went to Delaney, and the Norman Wells people went to Yellowknife. So I just wanted to stress that training, getting the wildfire prep for the season is very important, and just to have the fire crew all on the same page and get the same level of training for even local residents that we're trying to encourage. Yeah, and I think that is all I have for now for the wildfire prep for Toledo. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Pushp Seth. I'm the SAO of Betchco. I worked with Vati for 9 years as a chief financial officer. Then I joined Betchco in October 2022. So during the summer of 2023, during school break and during the pilgrimage of Lexi Ann, Betchco faced a severe wildfires. On July 24th, within a span of 15 minutes, on July 24th, within a span of 15 minutes, I have to issue evacuation alert, order, and notice and order in 15 minutes. We evacuated about 1,000 people, residents, to different locations, mainly to Yellowknife and Hay River. The evacuation process was very smooth. There was no backlash, no frustration. So the resident evacuated very peacefully. There was no issues. And as per the prediction of ENR or the algorithm, the fire was about to hit Betchco on, I forgot the date. It was on Wednesday. So Wednesday at 8 o'clock, the fire was supposed to hit Betchco, but the fire hit on Tuesday at 5 o'clock. So it was a surprise for us. And the contractor hired by GNWT, I forgot their name. I think there were no surrender fire services. So they also got evacuated. So we asked for the help, but nobody was there to help. The reason was the highway towards the access road to Yellowknife was also blocked due to the wildfires. So we were in the middle of the, in the wildfires. So we were not able to get out of Betchco. Neither they were not able to get into the Betchco. So Betchco, we don't have a full-time fire department in Betchco. We have about 10 volunteer firefighters. We have our fire chief here, Rene Kamzel. He and his team worked for continuously for 3 days, 3 nights, no sleep. So the fire was so severe that I was thinking, it came to my mind that we may lose the community. But due to their hard work, just with one water truck and one fire truck, we managed to contain the fire. So with the God's grace and with the hard work of our firefighters, we lost only 4 homes. So we had some challenges. The power was shut down without any notice. So we lost a lot of traditional food in Betchko. We were evacuated for 10 days. So the hunting season just ended in April, and we had a lot of traditional food. So we lost a lot of traditional food during the evacuation. So lessons we learned from the Betchko fire were the importance of fire breaks and the fuel reduction. So we should not take them lightly, and we have to maintain. Well, it doesn't mean that we have the fire breaks and the fire smarting. They are not a insurance policy. We are just managing our fire. So if you think that if we have fire breaks, if we have fire smarting in the community, it's an insurance policy. It's not an insurance policy. It's we can just manage with the. We can't fight the fire. We can just manage it as Mayor just So another thing was that our emergency plan was not up to date. So when I was doing the alerts, so I was scrolling all my papers, all my files on my server, which contact list should I use? So we have to make sure our emergency plans are up to date. At least we should have the contact names and the templates for the internal and the external communication. So we also learned how to collaborate with different stakeholders and community partners. Moreover, like more and more residents now, they're opting for the home insurance. So now, they have seen that we lost 4 homes. 3 personal, 3 homes were they were owned in the individual capacity, and one was the housing corporation. So 2 of them, they have insurance policies. So now people are understanding the importance of insurance, home insurance. Last but not least, you should have a liquid cash in your banks. Maybe the larger communities, larger centers, they have cash balance. They have bank balances to manage the expenses. But the small communities, they should always have they should have cash available in their bank, because these reimbursements from MACA or from GNWT or federal government, they take some time. So it's also very important to have cash. In our case, we were struggling with deficit. So suddenly these expenses, I have to incur these expenses. So this is also a learning for us that we have to save money for these emergencies. We were taking our protective services very lightly in past. We were not allocating our budgets properly to the protective services. Since last year, we are allocating more money towards our protective services. What else? Also, one of the more thing is we also learned that only this is not these events, they are not a political events. This is not an election rally where where all the council members, they are going on media and they're updating the media, right? So we learned that only one person should deal with the media. There should not be any politics in these events. So we need to understand that the mayor or the chief, they are the official spokesperson of the community. So all the media-related information should be relayed through them. So we learned this thing. We had some hiccups in the beginning because we have an extra tier. We have a self-government also. So there were some confusions about the roles and responsibilities. So these things should be properly documented, that should be the role of different governments at the local levels. If you have a self-government as well as the community government, the roles should be properly, documented. Thank you.
Okay, the microphone can float down that end for now. We'll move it as we need to. Thank you to all of our five for giving us a bit of an opening presentation about where they're at and what has happened in their communities. You obviously have in front of you now 5 people who have been there and done that to a large extent in terms of dealing with fire and dealing with some significant crises around that. Are there any questions in the room that you want to put to a particular person up on the panel or to the panel as a whole? We'll take any questions from the audience on things that you would like to ask the people up here, and we're going to start just over in this corner, and then I'll come back there.
Thank you. I'm an SAO from KFN, that's Katlo Diji First Nation. From Betcheko, you indicated that amongst the lost homes, one was not insured and was owned by an individual. We have a lot of that in KFN. What are you doing regarding maybe making sure that they're insured? Because for us, we're struggling with even finding an insurer who can take up all those uninsured homes.
As per my understanding, is the responsibility of the homeowner to take the insurance. If they're not taking insurance, they're taking a risk. At the community level, what we can do, we can fundraise and help that individual. So we are doing that. We did that. But we can't do a fundraising for $300,000 or $400,000 for one person. So, like I said before, like it's a personal responsibility of person to take the insurance. And if it is a mortgage on the house, the banks require insurance, right? So if the house is not mortgaged, they own the house, then generally in the smaller communities, people don't go for insurance.
I just want to open that out down the line a little bit. I don't know if that's something that affects other communities here as well. I know insurance is a pretty big issue when it comes to a lot of this stuff. Candace?
Yeah, that's something that we found in the last year, that people were having a hard time. They were being dropped. So there were some companies that weren't even renewing in our area. So yeah, it's tough, but there are insurance companies out there that will insure you, but it's going to cost you, basically. Yeah.
Have you taken any steps as a community to try to sort of, I mean, as we just heard, KFN is sort of in a situation where, like, what do you do as a municipal government or an Indigenous government? Do you have a role to play there to help hook people up with insurance or advise them or not?
I think that we can always lobby, ask the questions and push the issue. And I know I have, because we do still have insurance for fire in A River. I'm not sure how it works over on KFN memory, but we could certainly have a conversation.
I got a question right next to you as well, and then Mike, I'll come to you in a second.
Right, thanks. I'd like to say thank you guys for being up there to give us an opportunity to talk to you about these matters. My name's Amos Cardinal. I'm from KFN as well. I've worked for the Municipal Department of Public Works, and I've also been on the fire department for quite some time, but I've stepped away from it in hopes that some of the younger guys would step forward in our community and get involved. But I'm being pulled back in there because of our current fire chief is stepping down right now, so I'm going to kind of help out and try and build that thing back up to where we need to be. And also, I'd just like to point out that I'd like to, in the future, work with Hay River a little more closely in terms of what we've done here and what we've seen. I lost my home as well in the wildfire in KFN. The fire came out right behind my place, so I literally lost everything, along with everything I've built, shops. I was building stuff for that upcoming mine that was coming. I had all kinds of welders and stuff geared up to build another shop up at the other area. But You know, there was a lot I lost. And from what I understand, I lived on the reserve for the last 25 years. And one of the biggest issues we have here is because we're a reserve, the federal government is responsible for everything on the reserve, so they say. But as far as getting things like buying, for me to buy a brand new home and get it insured, like you mentioned there, no insurance company or anybody's going to touch anything on a reserve across Canada, any reserve in Canada, because there's no certainty for them to come in and foreclose on you if something goes wrong. If I buy a house for $2 million and decide not to pay for it, they can't come on the reserve and foreclose on me and take their home. They'll lose out. They're not allowed that. We have our own jurisdiction. Basically, a reserve is like a country in a country of its own, in some sense, when it comes to politics. And I lost my home. They gave me back the square footage of my home that I lost. That's all they give me. That's not to count that the $2 million or more I've lost in all assets in terms of my yard. I had to keep everything in my yard on reserve because we all know what's going on in the communities in terms of drug issues in the drug trade right now. So it's pretty tough, right? So we can't insure anything on reserves. You can't do anything. The government's got us closed in right now, but they are working on something where we can eventually start building homes and getting insured on reserves and people working with certain organizations. But from what I understand, it's still in the talks with federal government and GNWT. Some of the biggest arguments we have with KFN and some of the issues we see here is we want to deal with federal government. That's who we signed a treaty with the federal government back in the day. We never signed a treaty with GNWT or anybody else because they weren't even established then. And now the federal government has given provinces and territories the obligation to deal with us now, like with the federal government. And we're saying we didn't sign a treaty with GNWT. So with all due respect, I don't know why they're at the table. You know, it's good that they're at the table in terms of training. What we're trying to do here today is great. I can see progress. But as far as reserves go, we'll always be in the forefront fighting fairness with federal governments and all organizations. I come to realize that. And it will always be there. Every First Nations across Canada, why do you think all the reserves are 10 miles out of town or somewhere way out of the way on a dirt road? But that's slowly changing, and that'll only change if we get more people involved and stronger leadership for us. I can only speak on KFN for what we've seen in the last few years with the wildfires and not even working closely with Hay River when your resources to cross the river there. I believe, the only thing used to separate us and the Hay River was that river. But after what we've seen, we're all going to have to come together as a community and Hay River and start looking at a plan moving forward. Like you said, you want to see something moving forward. I think it's, if we start working closely together, I believe that the first fire in May, on Mother's Day will never be the same for a lot of mothers over there, including my wife. So is what she says. So I believe we could have had that fire under control, but I think due to ignorance on our side, that's what happened. And you can't reason with ignorance. And I just hope we don't see that again. I know this may sound harsh, but these are the harsh realities of what's really going on right now. So I just like to say I would like to be looking forward to working with you guys more closely with Hay River, with all resources surrounding our area, not just Hay River, with everybody. I know we live in distant areas, but we shouldn't play a distant when it comes to safety of our community and well-being. Like, I lost everything, literally everything I worked for, my home, shops, everything, skidoos, quads, you name it. I had no time to take nothing. The only thing I left with was what was on my back. And a year later, I brought pretty well half of it back. So I'm doing all right. I'm good with it. Nobody died. We all survived. We're safe. And that was the best thing that came out of that. So, but we have lots to learn and lots of work ahead of us. So I appreciate everybody here and everybody who's traveling home over the weekend to be safe. And I'd just like to say thank you.
Amos, thank you very much for that. I just want to give an opportunity if there's anyone on the panel who wants to have a comment on that.
Yeah, I think that's just reiterating exactly what we're saying, that we need an MOU, we need an agreement with our neighbors, and we need to work together that if you're in trouble, that you get to call us. We're there, right? And that works for any of our neighbors. If we're able to help, we want to be able to help. And so having this is long overdue. That I know, and sharing experiences and knowledge. Like I've learned just this morning listening to Joe up there talking, I was like, wow, like, right? There's solutions and there might be thousands of years old and this is what we did. Well, it seems to me that we need to be paying attention, right? That there's ways to manage, ways to work together. And I think that this is it's a giant step. It really is. And knowing that you're not alone, like I know talking to Chief Daniels, and he was just like, I'm standing there and everybody's leaving and my town's about to burn. I said, yeah, I get it, right? Like, where do we go for help? And so having these and you, the acronym, Wildland Interface, Urban Interface, woofy. So having those, that kind of deal up here is huge for us, right? That we can make those connections, that we can say, hey, I know so-and-so's coming. Like every time somebody showed up, right? Like Rod, I remember him walking in and saying, hey, we cleared the highway. There's no loss of life, right? Lots of animals, dead animals, burnt up vehicles, whatever. But it was like, okay, step one. We didn't lose anybody, right? Number one thing. But seeing them come through that was like, wow. There are friends, there are people that are going to come and help us out. And we want to be those friends as well. We want to be able to, we have a lot of equipment, we have a lot of knowledge, we have a lot of training. Travis is amazing with his team, right? So we want to be that neighbor, right? The bureaucracy has to, and we have to be able to say these people, I know that these people are on the way, right? If you don't have communications, if you don't have whatever, you need to know they're coming.
Did you want to come in and push me?
Yeah, memory about your insurance. Can you please talk to Housing Corporation? Because if Housing Corporation managed to get the insurance on their public housing from somewhere, you should also be able to get those insurance from those insurance companies.
Yeah, I was just going to say, yeah, we want to work closely with you guys too. Coming out of, we did a joint after action review with KFN coming out of this. And, one of the big things that we wanted to see come out of that after action review is the need for an MOU to remove the barriers of whatever politics or boundaries or federal land. And we have an agreement that we can help each other and there's nothing that's going to get in the way of that. So that's what I'd like to see, and whatever we can do to help you get up and running, training, whatever, give me a shout.
Okay, we got lots of questions stacking up. I'm going to go to Mike, and then I'm going to go here, and then I'm going to go there, and then I'm going to go to there, and then I'm going to go there.
Yeah, I know that, obviously Hay River and Smith had the benefit of Rodney and other folks from the WUI program in Alberta. It would be awesome if you guys could speak to the rest of the folks in the room about some specific takeaways that you got from working with those guys and applying it to, our unique jurisdiction with our more limited resources and stuff like that. I think that'd be really useful.
Sure, I'll start. Adam will close it out for me. Grab everything I miss. Yeah, working with them was, we had the resources and the organization and the experience. These guys, they fight wildfires and defend communities all across Alberta. So they've played in the sandbox and they have, experience on real events and serious events, much like the one we were facing. And them bringing their strategies and tactics and the organization of how we were going to structurally set up and defend our community, the sprinkler sets, the plans, the defense plans, collapse plans, all these different tactics we put in place in order to have a really strong defense of our community that got tested several times throughout that event. I can't even count how many times we were under the gun. And, we don't always have aircraft. Sometimes when we got big wind, planes, helicopters can't fly, so we were on our own several times there where it did come down to the boots on the ground to save that community. So, yeah, night and day from us in May running around trying to defend our community the best we knew how, and then them coming in and just how we managed the event, how we structured our teams with experience and local knowledge, and then leading up to events really training our guys, running drills on the impact zones we thought we were going to see, so that on the day that we got the pressure, we were ready for that response, and so were all the guys. So excellent experience, and every structural protection specialist that came in to work with us was amazing and helped us organize our whole show, really, and built that bridge too between us and ECC, because they're used to working with wildfire, and we were already working with them when they got there, but they helped fill in the gaps on our roles versus ECC's roles, and it just really brought a combined team together with clear objectives for both. So
I couldn't even say the wooey. I'll never get it right. But I'm going to tell you, I remember flying out on that Herc when I had to leave and thinking, oh, here we go. Looking at, I mean, that fire was on our water treatment plant. And when I landed, of course, immediately phoned back, what do we do in Trav? Did we lose our water treatment plant? And he said, no. And I'm like, are you just saving my sanity? Or he goes, no, Candace, like this thing's really still standing. And I'm going to tell you, it's standing because of those guys. Travis and his team. It absolutely is. The only reason that Hay River is still Hay River is because of urban wildlife. Woofy. There it is. It really is. And so because of that, we want to share that, and we need that here. I think that some of our, especially our smaller communities that don't have, like I have a volunteer fire department, and I think, oh, like when she's talking to people, I'm thinking, oh my geez, cheese and rice, what are you going to do if something goes wrong, right? So, right. Like that's, yeah, you can't be standing there on your own. These guys are the experts, and they come in and they know it, they do it. Like Travis said, they do it this is what they do for a living. So yeah, it was good stuff to see. It was amazing to watch.
Yeah, no, from our end, I think we had a similar experience. We were in a bit bigger incident structurally from an ICS standpoint, so we had a lot more agencies. We were in unified command with 3 large wildfire response agencies. And when we got structure protection specialists in, when we got the Alberta WUI program folks up, and they were able to take on some of those higher level ICS roles, and really clarify, like Travis said, roles and responsibilities, break it down into a way that plugs into a large-scale event. For us, it did fill a lot of gaps so that we were able to take on the appropriate frontline roles that we needed to play. And then we were able to start rotating out groups of people and manage a bit better. Of course, our local volunteers wanted to stay, so they did stay. But even then, they could take breaks. Our challenge in Fort Smith, we don't have water, 6 feet down the bank, and we don't have a lake front. We don't have access to water like Hay River does, so we need big pumps. And that was one of the things when looking at wildland-urban interface and structure protection, is we need to get big water up a big hill. So we were fortunate. We had fire and flood. I called fire and flood, and I had them coming in early on, maybe a couple days after evacuation, and they were able to put large-scale pumps, big pumps down the river that could pump up to the top of the hill and then boost that pressure again. But ultimately, our municipal water system wasn't going to be adequate to supply to begin with. It's unreliable given our power situation. So one of the biggest gaps that we realized for protecting our community and our infrastructure was access to water and access to reliable water. So then having those folks tying into people they already work with in the Alberta WUI program was seamless. These folks work together on events across Western Canada. They speak the same language. They work in the same ICS structures. So seeing how that operation works, I get that to Mike Westwick's point, we have a different context in this territory, and certainly we can't do everything exactly like Alberta, but ICS is ICS everywhere, so a lot of what we need to adopt is really working to the same unified, the same standard approach, because when we're calling on these resources, we want to speak the same language and we want to be able to tie into the same ICS programs. And when you see it working with professionals that do it regularly, it works really well. And it was really impressive. So yeah, we were very fortunate to get that experience. And we did the same thing. We were doing training with the Alberta folks as they came up, and we were running drills, we were triaging properties, we were assessing hazards, we were improving structure protection systems, we were testing pumps daily, we were testing sprinklers, we were finding gaps in structure protection and improving them. And every day was start from scratch, check it all, run it again, make it better, triage again, make improvements, fire smart buildings. So those lessons learned were huge for our department.
Thank you very much. Anything from this end before I move on? We got a couple more questions I want to try and fit in. I had one down here.
Good afternoon, Andre Larrabee from Fort Simpson, starting yesterday. Madam Mayor, I was listening to what you were saying about the day that you had an emergency and all of a sudden your staff could not communicate between each other. Can you explain to me or to the group, how did you solve the issue? Because I had a similar one in Sanikiluaq and I got gray hair from it.
Starlink.
Yeah, Starlink was our saving grace, but initially it was one of my counselors running back and forth from Trav to me to whatever was needed, right? They knew where I was, and we knew where he was, and trying to get messages back and forth. But my SAO was on the other side. He was on vacation, so was our director of recreation. So those are two key people in an emergency. But Starlink was, yeah, I got on one of the planes. I saw Dorsey DeLore getting on. I knew he worked in tech for the Power Corporation. I got on the plane and said, can I borrow you? I'll get you on the next plane out. And he set up Starlink. Still gives me a hard time. I still owe him. But yeah, Starlink was our saving grace, and that got us at least being able to communicate with each other and with our team that was outside of the community. So yeah, everybody should have one.
Okay, we got a question here.
So I was just curious, knowing all that you know now through your actual experiences, are you allocating more resources and time to your firefighters, their training, what needs to be done moving forward? And last but not least, are you taking care of them mentally? You guys have done amazing physically, because I've been on the Hay River fire, the Betchico fire. You guys did well for the firefighters, so thank you for that.
Yeah, mental health is a huge focus of ours. I think just as a department, we have to do better. And recently the Chiefs Association signed an agreement with Wounded Warriors Canada, and we're looking forward to bringing a peer support program to the NWT for firefighters, and it'll be NWT firefighters on the other end of that. So we're just trying to plan when we're going to be putting the sessions on to train those people, and then be able to launch an app for firefighters to support each other, which is something I think we've always been missing in the territories. We've had critical incident stress debriefs with high level when they were up during the incident. They were trained and brought my crew in specifically to sit down and go through that with them, and had mental check-ins through the event with other firefighters trained in critical incident stress. So it was definitely something we were trying to actively manage. It's tough in an event like that because each day can bring a new challenge, but you really got to keep your pulse on your crew in those situations and give them the breaks even when they don't want them. I had to force some breaks on some people because it was starting to show and they were on the edge, so I had to force some breaks that they were not happy about, but when they came back, they were happy. So, but yeah, it was definitely a long event. And then resources for the fire department. Yeah, I mean, since that event, we've purchased gear that's wildfire based. We have coveralls for everyone, helmets specifically for that. We got a brush truck now for responding to those types of incidents. We have a partnership with Aurora Ford that they help sponsor us to do that. And we immediately after we recognized the risk that this is and how we weren't geared up for it. And now we're trying to put ourselves in a better position to be able to make those types of responses quickly and be able to work with ECC, like the event in May that we both responded to, but we're not exactly compatible with our connections. So that's a big thing for us, is just trying to make sure we can be a better support, and then also be available to help other people, because we don't want to see them in our situation. So hopefully that answers the question.
Anybody else on the panel wanted to add anything to that? No? Everybody looks good? Okay.
How are you doing? How am I? Good.
We all say that. Yeah, speaking from experience, I same thing. I mean, I was working 16 hours a day to feed guys, right? There was no planning. I mean, I had worked, and it's kind of funny. Sometimes the universe puts you where you're supposed to be, I guess. I had done the track and field kitchen and cooked for 600 kids for many, many years. And then suddenly I was feeding firefighters. So, but I had meal planning, I had orders, right? None of that is in the cards. You are shopping over at SMCC, shopping at the hospital. What do we got? What are we going to feed these guys? And trying to make sure that, I mean, food when they're working as hard as they are was very important, right? So yeah, it was long days, amazing people. And again, you can plan, and so-and-so's supposed to be this, and this guy's supposed to be this, and then their lives are different, or they don't handle stress, right? I noticed it just in my counselors, right? They don't handle stress. Not everybody handles emergency situation the same. So understanding that you can plan as much as you want, but things are always going to be, there's always going to be a gap somewhere. And those people that stay behind, right? Everybody, it's personal choice with me. I can't force you out. If I could have gone, I would have gone, but it is personal choice. But understanding that those people that stay behind are the ones that picked it up when there was slack. They were the ones that stood up and spent 16 hours next to me cooking, or, right? So your redundancy really is your people, your community, because they want to help and they want to save it.
Okay, question here.
Yeah, so I'm Brian from Nuvik. We've seen cuts in funding, let's be honest, from GNWT, whether it's fire training, whether it's resources, particularly for the tax-based communities and the 1001 communities and professional combo communities. We've done a lot to try to sort that out, but it's made us focus our internal funding on just our basic core services. We know that there's issues in terms of the funding. We're not getting the lack of regional support as well through OFM and other organizations that typically do that coordination that we're going to hear about from Chief Schmidt in Alberta, where they've done a lot of development under their WUI program. Can you guys expand a little bit on the initiatives that the Fire Chiefs Association is taking and taking over that role and providing that support that's lacking from the government? And what we would be doing in terms of mutual aid agreements or other opportunities to coordinate those resources amongst all the Northwest Territories, particularly the smaller communities. The ones like us, we're way off on our own over in the Western Arctic as well. But just for us to all be able to access those resources and coordinate that.
Yeah, sure. I'll answer that as the acting president of the Chiefs Association. Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Brian. Yeah, we have a mutual aid agreement that was recently sent out, I think, to all the communities. We're planning on adjusting a couple of things, but mainly we want to get that back into the community's hands and have it be a tool that at least we can coordinate amongst ourselves as fire chiefs, that if you need help through this agreement, you push it through your council to sign on board, but basically through this you can request help in an emergency from community governments through this agreement. So requests would come in, closest available resources that are also part of the mutual aid agreement would be tasked with going to assist the community. So we're trying to address some of those gaps through the Chiefs Association that have been identified by fire chiefs. And all of us, I think, have identified that that's an issue, us being able to access resources easily. And this agreement is sort of a way to do that for the interim until maybe there's a larger WUI program that speaks to that. But this is sort of the gap filler that I think we're all looking for. Just even in the interim, understand that if you need help, you can get it, and that's the point of the agreement that we got. So yeah, that's. If you haven't seen that, let me know, and I'll get the agreement off to you, and you can take it to your council for any fire chiefs that are interested.
I'm just going to close off the session by asking one last question here, which is, for each of our 5 panelists, I'm going to start push with you on this side. Just in sort of 20 or 30 seconds each, give us a sense, if 2023 happened again this year, which we know that in some situations, like the fires are not going to behave the way they did because of the burn areas, things like that. If the same situation presented itself, how much more prepared as a community do you feel now than you did 2 years ago? And maybe if there's one topic area you still feel like you really need to improve on. If there's a quick answer to those questions, push.
So no doubt, we are well prepared now. So we got a lot of resources. We got financial assistance from NWTAC for our fire smarting and fire breaks. Yes, so I think we can handle the situation like far better now.
And where do you still need to improve? What's your number one area you still want to get better at?
Our trainings.
Trainings. Yeah. Okay. Samantha.
Oh. There you go. Hello. Okay. So ours, I feel we are from the 1996 wildfire in Toledo. I feel we are way more prepared than we were then with the community tabletop exercise we're doing with the local EMO, the fire smart assessing and the training with the fire department, the wildland firefighter training we had with the local residents, and just revamping up our fire department crew, trying to get our more funding is a concern for us to get more equipment, materials, training provided to the fire department crew, and capacity issue is still an area of concern for us.
Okay, thank you. Travis?
Yeah, I mean, if 2023 happened again today, I feel experience is the best teacher. And, going through those experiences, we understand how to set up defense of community and structure ourselves in a way to defend that community. So building response plans and structure assessments to lead to protection systems and protecting that critical infrastructure, just knowing how to evaluate and apply the tactics you need in order to make that defense, and then also training your group for that response is something that we've had to do. So now that we've had to do it, I feel that we're in a much better place to respond to that situation.
What's your number one thing you still want to crack that you haven't yet?
I think just the coordination of the resources, we're trying to fill that gap with this mutual aid agreement, but I still think that the gap of an actual WUI program in the territories is limiting, and having that in place allows us all to flow with each other a lot more smoothly and fit into incidents where that type of resource is needed for ECC. I mean, it's a team effort, and that's the world we're trained to play in, is the structural defense, and working together, I think, is going to give the best response for any community.
Thank you very much. Candace?
I think the biggest one is I'm very proud of my team. I mean, obviously, we've been through lots and we're well trained and they do a heck of a job. But when you can't count on those partners at the table, that's, I showed up in an airport and there was not a soul in that airport, not one person. So having that, I think that's the ensuring that those people, and there's redundancy in place, that they have backup, or whoever's supposed to be there better have somebody else there if they're not going to be there, that kind of deal. That would be my biggest one, is, right, it's hard to control other organizations. NGOs as well, their role in how it works. That's one thing that I noticed, and I feel a little bad in the press. There's always, everybody goes back to the municipality in a disaster, right? Like, it's not our responsibility. My responsibility is to get people out of town and make sure that everybody's safe. His responsibility is to fight the fires and try and protect what we have. But yeah, so sometimes, yeah, it just falls on us automatically as a municipality or as a community or whatever. And it's okay to say, no, here's your responsibility. This is your job. And you fell down, I guess. So yeah, but I think we're in a way better place than we were. And knowing that certainly helps the cause.
Okay, and Adam.
Yeah, I would echo a lot of what is being said out of Hay River. We had very similar experiences. So our partner agencies and just working them into our plans, making sure that their plans will support whatever we may need from them. Yeah, so ultimately making sure that we're working collaboratively with all those partner agencies for ongoing capacity and redundant capacity, which is exactly true. We saw the same things. Wildland-urban interface support and having that program in the territory, I think, is my big hope for the future. And this is a great starting point. I think the conversation's moving in the right direction. So I'm really excited about that. But if this were to happen again tomorrow, if 2023 happened again tomorrow, I think we're in a much better position for the experiences that we had. We would, like Travis said, know much better the resources we need. We set up structure protection to defend our community once before. We have the roadmap for how to do it again. So I feel much better positioned. Always in search of more training, funding to support improved equipment. Stock is always, a desire of every municipality across the country. But we have equipment resources now. We have training resources in house now. We're much better positioned. So, yeah.